the 27th of July. Just a reminder to everyone that during the state of emergency is declared by the governor, the Board of Selectmen, subject to the Main Freedom Access Act, is permitted to meet remotely with the contingencies that the public has been given fair warning, and the public is welcomed and encouraged to participate remotely. Also, all votes and actions by the board will be taken by roll call, including adjournment. Does anybody have any questions? Mike, are you all set? Okay,
Yeah.
great. Before we get going, David, would you read the quote of the evening?
Certainly. I remind myself every morning, nothing I say this day will teach me anything. So if I am going to learn, I must do it by listening. Larry King.
Thank you very much. And David, do we have anyone present for the Citizens Forum? Uh-oh, you're muted.
There it is. Oh, man.
Not that I'm aware of.
Okay.
I see a couple of guests as attendees, but they're all agenda item people, and there was nothing submitted on the website.
Okay, thank you very much. If there is nothing for the Citizens Forum, then let's move along to the administrator's report.
I just want to extend a thanks again to the folks that helped out at elections, and it was successful. It was a bit of a long night for those that stayed and counted. Appreciate all your help, and also for Karen for coordinating all the absentee voting that was conducted and the recording that has to go along with that here at the town office. The other staff didn't help out, but she certainly takes the lion's share of that. Just let the board know the Lincolnville Sewer District is about to commence with their project. They should be mobilizing, or their contractor should be mobilizing to Lincolnville this week, according to their pre-construction conference that was held a week or so ago. But they'll be here through the fall and early winter, likely, before that project is completed. Streetlight conversion is done. I did get a couple of comments about what happened to the streetlight that used to be out in front of my house, and I've encouraged those people to write to us or somehow get on the agenda and let the board know their concerns. And the only other thing I have tonight beyond what's on the agenda is just to let the board know that the possible land exchange with Coastal Mountains Land Trust is proceeding behind the scenes. I've got some language from Coastal Mountains Land Trust regarding the deed and the conservation easement that I have shared with the town attorney. And we're expecting some more information regarding the survey of the town's property to come to us. And then the attorneys are doing their thing, conversing, and eventually this will all come back to the board. Hopefully a nice, neat little package. The other thing that I would encourage the board to consider would be perhaps to get going with some sort of, I'm not sure how we do this remotely, but a community listening session or stakeholder meeting so that we can hear some input from community about their expectations for the park. We've had some comments submitted verbally from neighbors, both at the tour and via the phone to me. I've encouraged everybody that at some point, someone's going to call. At some point, we'll be moving forward with
right now. Please leave a message and we'll get back to you.
Apparently Karen's not at the chair and he's not at home either.
All right. I'm sorry.
Some way to get some community input so we can, so that the board can decide how it wishes to operate, and we can get going on making that operation happen when the exchange does take place. I would anticipate that it will be a couple months period of time before any transfer of deeds or exchange of deeds take place, in all likelihood.
David, what if we were able to set up something at the Walsh Common or the gym with a socially distanced listening forum for any Lincolnville voter, but of course, especially the abutters being invited, and we could have some visuals up and that kind of thing.
I think we could arrange for that if the school was cooperative, which they should be. They've had some other activities in there. Obviously, we need to pick a date, probably sometime between now and when school starts. And I don't know when school's going to start or scheduled to start. But as long as we weren't, a crowd greater than 50, which would probably be unlikely, that I would think that we'd get more than 50 people. We probably could socially distance, pre-position the chairs so people knew where to sit. And if somebody came in in the same household unit, they could obviously sit together, but I think it's doable.
What does the board think? Would a general nodding of heads suffice, David, to at least get the ball rolling? And then maybe we could send out some dates for everyone to attempt to agree on.
Yeah, or speak up if that's a bad idea. Probably, general nodding of head is good, but if somebody doesn't think the idea is worthwhile or wants to pursue a different avenue, speak now, I guess.
Oh, no, I think it's a great idea, but are we restricted to 50 people only maximum? That's state mandate, right?
Yeah, that's the gathering size that's currently limited. You conceivably, I suppose you could do something outdoors, but then you're subject to the weather.
Yeah.
And you're subject to how are people going to hear and communicate back. I could just imagine a good thunderstorm rolling through on the evening. You would look to do something. And if we set up in the common, we don't sometimes get 50 people for the school's town meeting, the school budget meeting. So maybe this is bigger than that. You can always hold several.
Well, I'm wondering if we could make that thing, have 50 people and then also have it be broadcast, Zoomified, or however we do it.
Oh, I'm sure if there's a will, there's a way.
Yeah. Well, I don't know but I don't know how many people would show up. So if it's worth the trouble.
Well, the other thing that we've contemplated or had challenges in the way back was if we broadcast meetings, sometimes less people come and participate.
Yeah.
Than if you force people out of their comfort zone and to come to a meeting because you're not going to broadcast it, they show up. But we can record, we can broadcast, we can Zoom, we can do whatever you want.
Okay.
Anyone think it's a terrible idea?
No.
Okay, great. So why don't we look at some dates in the next, what do you think, month, David? Couple of weeks?
Well, if we're going to do it at the school, it probably ought to be before school gets in session. I think that may heighten their anxiety, for lack of a better word, in terms of possibly exposing students to something. I can certainly reach out to the school staff and find out if they have some items scheduled and if they have some concerns or if that's going to pose a big problem, and then get some possible dates out to the board.
Great. And what's the board's thoughts if we ask David, once we settle on the venue and the date, sending out a couple notices, across all platforms, probably in the press, in the Google groups, to rouse interest. I think that this could be a really valuable tool for us as we move forward in setting policy.
No, I agree, yeah.
Due to the recent response on our town Lincolnville Google groups, the response that everybody said they didn't know anything about the vote or didn't know what they were voting about, I think there's been enough feedback of get involved, so that I think this may, I hope this may be a lot better attended than previous events. So I think we should look at possibly more than 50 people. If not, then shame on this town. That's just my own personal opinion, but I think we should look at maybe there's going to be more than 50 people.
So if that's the case, we would, I mean, if we can't have more than 50 people in a room, we would just stop the 51st person and make sure we live stream.
Well, that, you're right, if 50 is our number, but I don't want to turn anybody away for trying to participate. So I think you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, how many times have we said we've got open committee members and committee positions and we need people to help and blah, 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 blah. Then this vote, you see what has happened. I don't want to turn anybody away for trying to participate. So I think we should think of that.
The other option that might be available would be to have, for lack of a better word, an overflow room where we could broadcast from one room to the other.
Mm-hmm.
So people could at least listen. And, you know, if we had to rotate people in for, you know, a microphone or something, well, so be it. But at least they're there and can hear it and see it. And it's not like it's going to be a one-off either, in my mind. I think this is going to be a process of, you know, hearing from people that are interested, concerned, and then developing some sort of preliminary plan or operations plan, and then coming back and having the board have more conversation. And so there's a potential for a couple different iterations of this before we get to something that the board is comfortable with. Not just, I mean, potentially, I suppose it could be just one and done, but I've got this feeling that it's going to be more of a process where the first night it's solely listening. And then as you move forward, you know, then responding to all the concerns that we heard. And I just got a message that this isn't somehow being broadcast out to the world. So give me a brief second.
Okay. But yeah, to your point, Kern, I think we should be able to figure out a way, whether it is like queuing people up in another room, you know, because we'll just be listening, unlike, you know, say town meeting where it's interactive. Yep. People should be able to come in and sort of voice their ideas or concerns or thoughts. And then,
well,
you know,
if we do end up deciding to do it at the school, we've got the walls common, then we've got the back-to-back, the gymnasium there. So we could, you know, park the gym people down front, park the people for the walls common out back. I mean, you know, we could get creative that way. I mean, you're not going to be able to stop them from, you know, congregating after they get out of there, but that's on them.
Yeah.
But at least we've done what we have to do to get as many people in as possible. So if we said 50 in Walls Common, which maybe that's a high number for that size space, 50 in the gym, I think we could accommodate, you know, I think we could get our numbers.
Okay, great. Thank you all for your thoughts. David, is there anything else under administrator's report?
I think that's it.
Okay.
Sound is now verified to be working.
Okay.
Sorry.
Okay.
Excellent. Let's move along to upcoming meetings and announcements.
All meetings are here at the town office unless announced otherwise. There are a number of meetings that aren't on the agenda, starting with the Inland Waterways Committee is meeting tomorrow, Tuesday, June 28th, 6:30. Midcoast Solid Waste Corporation Board of Directors meets Wednesday, June 29th at 6:30. The Planning Board meets on Wednesday, June 29th, 7 PM. Broadband Committee is meeting on Thursday, June 30th. No, June, these are all July. I'm sorry, I'm a month behind, at
We knew.
7 PM. And the Board of Selectmen meet next on Monday, August 10th at 6 PM.
Woo, I'm not ready for August. Thank you, David. Are there any community events happening at all? Yes.
The Lincolnville Historical Society and the Lincolnville Improvement Association are hosting an event on Saturday, August 1st at 11 AM at Breezemere Park regarding community brainstorming regarding the LIA building.
Great. Anything else anyone wants to share? All right, let's move along to the meeting minutes. We have 2 sets of meeting minutes to approve. I'll entertain a motion. Actually, do we have 3 sets of meeting minutes? We have
You do.
the June 22nd, I'm sorry. I'll entertain a motion for June 22nd.
I move
23rd?
board-
23rd, 22nd.
That ought to be the first correction.
23rd, I've got.
Yeah, that's what but it was the 22nd.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it was the 22nd, sorry.
Anyway. I'll entertain a motion.
I move that the board,
approve. Go ahead.
go ahead. Go ahead.
I move that the board approve the meeting, June 22nd, and the minutes of the meeting as presented.
Second.
With that change.
Motion by Selectman Barrows, seconded by Selectman Garrettson. Is there any discussion? Seeing no discussion, Selectman Barrows, what's your vote?
Yes.
Selectman Late, what's your vote?
Yes.
Selectman Garrettson, what's your vote?
Yes.
Selectman Ray, what's your vote?
I wasn't there, so I guess I would abstain. Do I have to be there to
No.
vote on them, to accept? Oh, well, then they're fine by me, yes.
Okay. And Selectman Dunn, my vote is yes. Thank you all very much. And I'll entertain a motion for the meeting minutes from July 13th.
I move that the board approve the July 13th, 2020 meeting minutes as presented.
Second,
Moved by Selectman Garrettson, seconded by Selectman Ray. Any discussion? Seeing no discussion. Selectman Barrows, what's your vote?
Yes.
Selectman Late, what's your vote?
Yes.
Selectman Garrettson, what's your vote?
Yes.
And Selectman Ray, what is your vote?
yes.
And Selectman Dunn, my vote is yes. Motion passes. Thank you all very much. And there is a final set of meeting minutes from the 15th of July. I'll entertain a motion for that.
I move that the board approve the July 15th, 2020 meeting minutes as presented.
I'll second.
Motion by Selectman Late, seconded by Selectman Barrows. Is there any discussion? Seeing no discussion, Selectman Barrows, what's your vote?
Yes.
Selectman Late, what's your vote?
Yes.
Selectman Garrettson, what's your vote?
Yes.
Selectman Ray, what's your vote?
Yes.
And Selectman Dunn, my vote is yes. Motion passes. Thank you very much. And while we transition from approval of meeting minutes, David is going to invite over the ACO. All goes well.
Heidi, you there?
Yes, I am.
She's here, Madam Chair.
All right, David, do you want to give her a brief introduction?
Sure. Heidi Late is Heidi Late. Sorry. too many-
No,
Sure.
different.
Different Heidi. Heidi Blood is Lincolnville's Animal Control Officer. And she's here to give the board an update and to also talk about the possibility of creating a new Town of Lincolnville animal control ordinance. And with that, I guess I'll just turn it over to Heidi to tell you what she wants to tell you.
Thank you, David. I'm sorry I couldn't meet via video. I'm not up to speed that far on internet services, so my apologies there. Basically, my request is a new dog ordinance, or I should say animal control ordinance, that would invoke a lot more rights, not rights, but a lot more capability for the animal control officer to issue violations and fines without using the court system. Long story short, I attended animal control recertification, I'm going to say back in September of last year now. And we were made aware of a new form that's been implemented in a lot of towns around the state. And I have brought this recommendation to all of the 7 towns that I work for. That basically it's been seen to be effective with gaining resident compliance with animal laws without the need for summonses to court, etc. Basically, it gives the animal control officer a much better option where I can hand somebody a violation form and say, this is what's going to happen and this is what it's going to cost you out of pocket if this violation continues. What we've seen in the past is a lot of animal control violations are not approved by the district attorney if we feel the need to summons for a violation, mainly because the majority of them are civil offenses. And the court systems are just jacked up with much more serious issues than, somebody's dog running at large or somebody's pigs getting loose 6 times in a year. So we find that the district attorneys a lot of times will throw back the animal ordinances unless there's a severe long-term problem that's gone on. Which I'm sure in you guys' case, you can imagine, the neighbors calling me being angry that nobody's been summoned, nobody's been charged. Basically, it would lead to less need for law enforcement to be involved. And what we've seen in other towns, what I learned from the state is what we've seen in other towns is a lot more voluntary compliance with dog licensing, rabies compliance, dogs at large, the regular run-of-the-mill calls that I generally get called on. In order to legally do this, the form and its fines have to be included in a town dog ordinance. And because I work for the town of Union, they sent it to their attorney for approval. And I just heard yesterday that it did get approval, that it is a legal document and everything is on the up and up as far as that is concerned. 3 of my towns that I work for have implemented this. I've not had to use it yet, thankfully, but 3 of my 7 towns have implemented this form. And what my hope is to, like I said, gain voluntary compliance. And without having to, I don't want to go to court and spend a day in court to have somebody pay a $50 fine for having a dog at large. It's not worth their time. It's not worth my time. But I do think that having these ordinances in place, I really think it would make my job 10 times easier, I'll be honest. One concern that the town of Liberty had with this ordinance that I recommended is they didn't want myself being the only person to say, Joe is in violation, here's a ticket, this is what you have to pay. So what they opted to do was, in the case of a summons having to be written, in the case of a citation having to be written, I would need approval from the select board that the X issue has gone on long enough and it's time to take, action and hit somebody in the pocketbook with a violation. And that seemed to go over very well at the Liberty Town meeting. So I did email David a final draft of the ordinance that I was recommending. And that is the only thing that I would say is an option to add to the ordinance.
Thoughts from the board or questions for Heidi?
Hi, Heidi. This is Josh Gerritsen. I guess my first question is, in the last 3 years, how often do you have an issue in Lincolnville where you have someone repeatedly causing an issue?
I would say for the town of Lincolnville, you guys are all good. Most people are good people there. In the town of Lincolnville over the last 3 years, I would have to guess, without looking at my records, half a dozen that I think should have or were summoned.
Okay.
So it's a very low number, fortunately.
Okay, thank you.
I might add also, this might answer somebody's questions, is all of the citations that are on the violation form that I included with the information for David, they are all state mandated laws, and the fines do exact what the state law is if somebody were to be summoned. The state doesn't allow us, as I'm sure you guys know, to enact lesser fines. We can enact steeper fines, but I copied exactly what the law reads. So basically it would be the very same thing without having to involve law enforcement or the court system.
And I see that the town of Hope considered it and that it failed to pass by a narrow margin. Do you know what some of the pushback was in Hope?
I don't. I actually have spoken with them a couple times, and I did just get an email today, as a matter of fact, that it did not get approved. But I haven't spoken with anybody to see what the major pushback was. I suspect it was something similar to what Liberty's concern was, in that I would be the only person making the decision whether somebody got fined or not. So I think it was a good move on Liberty's part to, and to say that the selectmen needed to approve the citation before it was issued.
Okay.
That way it's not just one person saying, yes, you did this. It's, the board.
Okay.
Lately.
Yeah, yes.
I've got a couple issues with the reading of it, my interpretation of the way I read it.
Sure.
In the impounding part of it down in there, whenever a dog is confined outside a fence or a leash on the owner's property, disturbs the peace of another person, you're asking for the right to go on to the property, unlock a gate, a fence, a leash, a something, and remove a dog from the property without any due process, correct?
That is correct, and I do apologize for not removing that from my request. In speaking with the state, obviously that can't be done for numerous reasons. Though I am an officer of the law, I certainly cannot trespass on somebody's property, and certainly remove animals are considered personal property. So, and that is the barking ordinance is the only ordinance on that is not a state law. The state of Maine does not have a barking ordinance. So that certainly, in my opinion, should be omitted from any barking ordinance if there should be one. That if the Lincolnville decides they want one, I personally wouldn't feel right about doing as it mentioned.
Well, to me, when I read that, I saw all kinds of red flags. It just really,
Oh, absolutely.
really got
Absolutely.
under my skin personally.
And I agree 100%.
That was primarily everything. I've got 2 pages worth of writing here, but that primarily says everything I think. The only other question I had was, yes, you are an officer authorized to do these things, but if it escalates to the next point, is Waldo County going to stand behind us and do anything, or is this another one of these things that it's a town
Right.
ordinance? Too bad.
And in that situation, in the barking dog situation, you are 100% correct. The sheriff's department nor state police will uphold or agree to assist me in any manner with a town ordinance. That being, all of the other ordinance that I've suggested are state law as well. So as long as they're a state law, then I could receive assistance from the sheriff's department or state police if necessary. But that does not include the barking ordinance.
So in other words, before we approve this, we really ought to see a new rewrite with some stuff crossed off.
Correct.
I think that's it for me.
Okay.
Other thoughts or questions for Heidi at this time?
I'll just state my opinion. I'm inclined not to move forward with the new animal control ordinance. I mean, honestly, Heidi, it seems like you do such a great job with the tools you have for Lincolnville.
Thank you.
When I read your log, you really do seem to resolve the vast majority of cases. And I know people are hurting more than they have in the past.
Certainly.
Financially. And I don't know, I'm not crazy about adding additional rules on the books that could result in fines when it seems like the way you've been handling it so far has been working well for our town.
Okay. Well, thank you for that input. I appreciate it.
Yeah, and I'll echo what Selectman Garrettson says. I feel like we're fortunate to both have conscientious pet owners, and also Heidi, your work here in town, has been so great and consistent that, as you said, there are very few instances where you've had issues. And from a more basest aspect, it costs the town an amount of money to, have our lawyer look at any drafts and all that kind of thing. So I feel like we're always open and available. If something changes drastically and you come to us and you say, look, this is a real problem and I need an instrument, a legal instrument that would support me in doing my work, I think we could certainly revisit this conversation. But I think for myself, it doesn't read as critical, at least at this time.
Sure.
Any other thoughts or comments for Heidi on the draft ordinance? Not hearing anything. Heidi, how's everything else going with you?
Everything else with animal control is going really well across all my towns, thankfully. The only trouble that we ran into this year, obviously, was dogs being licensed in a timely manner. Luckily, we're only down to, I believe, 2. It may even be 1 now.
Wow.
That has not been licensed due to COVID, et cetera. I wasn't allowed to enter people's homes, yada, yada, yada. And the state animal welfare department said that all animal control officers cannot summons for any animal control violation, with the exception of dangerous dogs, should a dangerous dog attack happen and the public is at risk. So generally I would have summons for unlicensed dogs by this time, but due to COVID, et cetera, we've not been able to. I expect that to be lifted within the next month or so. I just spoke with the animal welfare department last Wednesday, I believe it was. And to date, we are still not to enter summonses into the court system right now. So, and that was another thought that I had with, COVID happening and everything. I thought this ordinance would enable me to act quicker in regards to, yes, they are smaller fines, but my thought is if I let one person get away with it, I've let them all get away with it. So I feel bad for not having been able to summons those, that should have been by this time. But aside from that, animal control is going well.
Okay, great. Anything else you wish to share with the board, or can we let you go?
No, I think I'm due to have my animal control recertification again come September. And when I do, I'll forward my certificate on to you and we will move forward.
Okay,
Get
great.
rid of 2020.
I think David Kinney had something to say.
Certainly.
I'm not sure what you want staff to do or not do. I heard two of you say you were inclined not to move forward. I heard Dave ask some questions, and is Heidi dropping this ordinance request for the time being because that's what the board wants, or do you want us to come back with something else, or?
If you don't mind, I would love to amend the ordinance and come back to it at a later date. I know there's certainly a lot more pressing issues that you folks need to handle, and I appreciate that. So I do think the violation form and ordinance would be an asset to the town. But like I said, I wouldn't mind certainly amending it and coming to you at a later date in a few months.
I was looking for direction from the board versus.
I'm sorry.
Other members of the board that haven't voiced an opinion.
Well, if we're in the expressing opinion stage, yeah, I would hesitate to put another layer on the town right now, and it's going to be costly. Though I do like the idea. Heidi points out that it streamlines her job and the person who is issued a summons. That is, they don't have to go traipse into Belfast and go to court, for example. And you know, that it has its advantages, but it's a layer of a regulation that I'm not so sure the town needs right now, given all things that are going on. But that doesn't address Dave's question of what are we going to do with it.
I don't think we need to do this at this time. Maybe we can revisit it later on. Like Heidi said, we do have some more pressing issues, and I think for the most part, things go very well, especially with the way that Heidi does her job now. I'm all about streamlining things, which, you know, we all need to look at stuff like that. And I appreciate, Heidi, you trying to do that to help us.
Certainly.
As of right now, I can't see adding another layer right now.
Okay. I'm okay with that.
Thank you very much, Heidi. I'd be happy to entertain a motion to table this discussion for a future date.
So moved. Yeah.
Second.
Moved by Selectman Ray, seconded by Selectman Garrettson. Any discussion? Seeing no discussion, Selectman Barrows, what's your vote?
Yes.
Selectman Late, what's your vote?
Yes.
Selectman Garrettson, what's your vote?
Yes.
Selectman Ray, what's your vote?
Yes.
And Selectman Dunn, my vote is yes. Also, Heidi, to be continued.
Okay.
Thank you for your time this evening. We'll let you free.
Okay. I appreciate your time. Take care.
Thank you
you,
very
Heidi.
much.
Thanks a lot.
And David, you're bringing over Gary Galasian to give us an update for the Lakes and Ponds Committee.
Nope.
Through the magic of Zooming.
Should be on his way. Or I just deleted him completely. Oops.
Well, in your packet, Gary Galasian had provided a very comprehensive update of what the Lakes and Ponds Committee has been up to, as well as a current project of theirs with an invasive plant species. So as soon as David gets him over here, I'm sure we will hear all about it.
Right. Let's see. I'm hoping he logs back on because there he is.
He is right there.
Mute him. There he is.
Hi, Gary.
Hi, Gary.
Oh, Gary.
Good to see you all.
See you as well. Welcome to the virtual meeting.
Thank you.
Indeed.
My purpose is to update you on where things stand with the Lakes and Ponds Committee and the work we've been doing over the last year or so. It's been a while since I've briefed you, but there's been a lot of activity going on, and I think the committee's been productive, all except for the months of March, April, and May, when we had a bit of a hiatus, not being able to meet. But Dave's done a good job of providing Zoom meetings for us to meet again, and we've done that for the months of June and July. What I want to do is sort of bring you up to speed on some of the things that have transpired over the last several months and since the last time I briefed you. And as part of your briefing package, Dave provided the report that the Lakes and Ponds Committee put into the town's annual report. And I think that that does a relatively detailed job of talking about some of the work of the committee. And what I want to do today is just highlight some of the significant elements there, and especially some of the things that talk to larger issues and trends. And it's going to be mostly good news. Based on the monitoring that's been done in the lakes seem to be in really good condition. And that may be partly because of the drought conditions that we've had, or the low water levels, or the low amount of rain over the past several years. But if you look at things like wildlife populations, they're doing well. The loons are reproducing on many of the lakes, both last year and this year. Also, the restoration of alewives to Coleman Pond is going well. If you recall, the state did stocking for 4 years in a row of about 1,000 or so fish, but stopped that stocking last year, and the population is sustaining itself. So alewives came back into Coleman Pond this spring, and the reports that we get at our committee meetings is that there is evidence of the presence of young alewives, and we had enough rain in that larger storm earlier this year for the adult alewives to return back to the ocean. So that's good. And based on the monitoring, water quality is excellent as well. Water clarity was very good last year and has been good this year as well. The level of oxygen in the water, even down at fairly low levels in the ponds and the lake, is excellent. And probably the most significant thing is that we're not seeing any violations of water quality standards for bacteria. If you recall, that's been a persistent problem, especially for Norton Pond and around the Breezemere Park area and around the culvert that goes under Route 52. But last year we didn't see any exceedances, nor have we so far this year. I think one of the changes is that the testing method has changed. We used to use Enterococcus, which can be used either for saltwater or freshwater, but the preferred testing approach to use is looking at E. coli levels. So some of this may be associated with the change in levels, but it's a good thing because we're getting values that are lower than what would be of concern to issue closures for the beaches. We're continuing to monitor it. The Lake McGlinticook Watershed Association does their monitoring every week. I think on Wednesdays, if they get a high value, they repeat to see if it continues to be high, and if it doesn't continue to be high, then they don't post the beaches, or the town doesn't post the beaches for the weekend. But that's looking good so far. The Lakes and Ponds Committee is still standing in the wings. If you look at our budget request for last year, we're working very closely with the Lake McGlinticook Association. So if they end up seeing an elevated level at that end of Norton Pond, and there's a rain event in that period, our plan is to go up and do monitoring into Meservey Brook, or Minnow Brook. It's got a couple of different names on the other side of the culvert, to see if that might be a source of elevated bacterial levels, because it has been in the past, to try to pinpoint where the problem might be, but there hasn't been any need to do that last year or this year, but we stand at the ready to do that. The other thing I want to report on is where we stand with unencapsulated polystyrene. As I'm sure you recall, the select board sent out a mailing to all lakefront property owners last May that included the brochure that the Lakes and Ponds Committee put together, as well as a really nice cover letter from the select board requesting people to pay attention to that issue. And the Lakes and Ponds Committee has been doing surveys of all of the lakes. And when we look at 2019, the summer after you sent out the letter, the number of docks and floats without unencapsulated polystyrene, or the numbers of docks and floats, without unencapsulated polystyrene, which are the ones that we're concerned about, went down from 93 to 71, which is about a 24% decrease. So that letter may well have made a difference. There are going to be variations in those numbers from year to year, depending on the number of docks and floats that could get put out. We're wondering about this year, since some cottagers aren't, or some camp owners aren't coming up this year. So there might be lower totals, but we're going to try to make as much sense as we can of our survey information. Finally, I want to talk to you about two current projects that we're working on. One is the issue of Phragmites, or common reed, that is adjacent to the trailer parking lot at Breezemere Park. And I don't know if you've seen this or not, and there's a piece that's included as part of your briefing package from the state on Phragmites, but it's something that can really take over wetlands and shoreland areas of ponds and lakes. And if any of you have done any traveling to the Portland area, or particularly going south into Massachusetts, you'll see that Phragmites is really rampant, and it covers tens of thousands of acres of wetlands to the exclusion of other wetland plants. And it causes real problems for property owners in terms of actually being able to see the lakes and ponds in front of their property. And it seems as though the area on Norton Pond, at that end of the pond near Breezemere Park and going toward the culvert, could be a prime area where it could colonize. So we thought it was really important to try to control the stand that adjoins the parking lot. We think that there's on the order of maybe 5,000 square feet or so, maybe a tenth of an acre or a little more in that area. And it's been there for several years, but every year it seems to be getting thicker. So the Lakes and Ponds Committee has been researching the issue, consulting with the state and consulting with the Waldo County Soil and Conservation District Office about what we should do about it. And we finally got approval from the state DEP to go into the wetland and begin to control the Phragmites using manual methods. And this is something that I've been coordinating with Dave Kinney. It is important to start that work before the end of July if you're going to be effective in controlling it, even though it'll take multiple years to go in and cut it back if you're doing it by manual efforts. So this morning was the morning that the Lakes and Ponds Committee went out to initiate this work. We had 8 people there. Mike Ray also came along and offered a hand. It was a hot day to work, but I think we made some good progress. There's about 150 feet or so that front on the parking lot. We were able to get about 90 feet of that frontage going back about 15 feet. And that amounts to about 1,300 square feet of Phragmites that we remove. And that's about a third of the amount that the state will allow us to control this year, because we got a special permit exemption to do this quickly and not to have to pay a permit fee for a one-time project. We've also been working with Waldo County. They are in a position to send staff out and a director out on Wednesday of this week to finish off the job, so we can try to get as much as what the state will allow us to do this summer to control it. And they're going to be able to bring along a professional brush cutter, and this is a brush cutter that straps to a person's body and has a circular saw kind of blade that will be able to do it much more effectively than what we were able to do today with sickles and machetes and that kind of thing. But we made good progress, and I think we've got a better feel for the nature of the problem. In the future, if we have to repeat this, there's the possibility that we would have to pay a permit fee to the state. And that permit fee might be on the order of $250. And that would allow us to do work for 2 years in a row. And it's possible that this is a project that may have to go on for several years. And talking to the DEP staffers about this, they don't think it's a good idea to have to charge money for this kind of thing, because we're improving the wetlands. It's truly a restoration project, but that's the way the law is written. But it's something that we're going to continue to work with them on, and maybe there is a way to get an exemption from having to pay that permit fee in the future. The one other question that comes up relative to removing the Phragmites is what you do with it after you cut it down. And what we did this morning is that we brought it to the edge of the parking lot out of the wetland itself and placed it on tarps, where we hope that it will dry out. But it's important that it be contained in some way there and not be brought to other areas, because if it does find its way to a wet area or another wetland, it could sprout there as well. So I talked to Dave some this afternoon about some ways of approaching that issue, maybe getting some additional tarps to cover up. And when it dries out, there might be the possibility of bringing it over by the salt and sand shed, and maybe burning it once it's dried out, and isn't likely to cause a problem if it gets out of our control. So that's what we're working on with respect to that project. What we had hoped to do this as a community project, as an education project, when we were talking about this last winter, involving the Conservation Commission, the Recreation Commission, perhaps the boat club, maybe getting some volunteers from Boy Scouts or Girl Scouts to work on it. But with COVID, all of that got a lot more complicated. So we decided to just move forward with it on our own. Maybe in the future, we'd be able to bring in other volunteers or groups in town to help out with it as well. Moving on to the second project that we've been researching and looking at, has to do with about 40 or so discarded tires that are on town property near where the Millington Building Foundation is. So it's in the wetland there, down behind the slope where the library is, right next to the snowmobile trail in that area. We're going to be able to get a better sense of what's there, because that area is sort of overgrown with the Phragmites as well, to kind of get a sense for what it'll take to remove those tires. They are an environmental concern because it is a place where mosquitoes can breed, and that wetland is connected with Norton Pond as well. That trail that goes between the parking lot and the school is also used as a nature trail for the students. And they go right past those 40 or so tires that are disposed of on the ground there. So we think it's probably time to remove those as we can, and we just wanted to consult with you on that issue, get your advice on it, and figure out what it might take to clean up those disposed tires. I think they've been there for a while. For a while, there are trees that are growing up through the centers of some of the tires, so it's not going to be a really simple job to pull them out. It may take a tractor with a chain. I've talked to some other groups in town, and there may be people who are willing to volunteer some equipment, maybe from the Conservation Commission or other groups to try to get those tires out so they can be properly disposed of. But so that's something we're still considering now, and I'd be interested in any comments that you have about either projects and moving forward with them.
Thank you for that very comprehensive synopsis of what you've been up to.
Yeah, it's a good group of people, and it's a really, having the committee is a great way of bringing the different lake associations together. And it's a way of communicating with the lake associations both ways, between the town and the local lake associations, and the lake associations back to the town, and the lake associations amongst themselves. I think we've got a really good group of people on the committee right now who are really willing to pitch in and work and do some research and try to figure out what we need to do to best protect the lakes.
Thoughts on the board?
Well, my thought on that is, man, we got a echo.
Yeah, there's an echo all this time.
Gary, I think you might have to mute your speakers.
I'll mute my speaker. Yep.
There we go. Thank you. Obviously, it's important to get those picked up. The thing that we all have to realize is there's going to be a cost associated with disposing of those properly. I know Midco Solid Waste has a fee to get rid of tires, and they do welcome them because they put those in the hopper to grind with the rest of the stuff. But there's going to be a fee, so we got to be mindful of that and make sure before we do that, we want to make sure we've got money to get rid of that stuff. We don't want to stockpile it somewhere. Gary, thank you for thinking of the community first to participate in that. I know this COVID thing has changed the way a lot of us are thinking, but thank you for being forward with that.
What sort of funds do we have currently in the Lakes and Ponds bank account, so to speak? Mr. Kinney, I'm looking at you.
You're asking me.
Yeah. I think I've got the answer to that if you don't have it at your fingertips. Dave.
Go ahead, Gary. You'd be right, and I'd have to be wrong anyways.
I believe that it's either $800 or $850. I think our request was for $850, and it may have been approved for $800. I haven't seen the exact number. Most of that is money to pay for the testing that we would do if we need to do it going up Meservey Brook. But there was also $150 that we asked for that would cover contingencies as they came up during the year. So there would potentially be money to either help out with the Phragmites removal if we needed to do it, or with the tire removal. And if we get further into the year, into the fall, we wouldn't be doing testing any longer, so that would free up the other, $600, $700 for the testing that we could use for tire removal if you approve the movement of the monies to use for that purpose.
Well, I'm sure we could make a phone call or two, or Gary, if you would, maybe you could probably get a quote from Midcoast Solid Waste for the estimated cost of disposal. And then we could give you the thumbs up. I think it's a great, it goes without saying it. I think it's a great idea.
Gary, you said there's about 40 tires?
There's about 40 tires from what you can see on the surface. There also may be the need to contact the DEP because of the status of that area. There are test wells there because of the hazardous waste issues in the past. And there's a question of how much the soil would be disturbed by pulling the tires out. I talked to David about that, and we would need to consult with the state if we go forward with it.
Well,
Yeah.
I'm sorry. Yeah, I'd be concerned, Gary, about if we're talking about getting a tractor with chains in, people getting hurt, especially working around. I think there's a lot of glass jars and there's a lot of stuff in the area. If you're working with a tractor and chains, you have to worry about that.
Mhm.
And secondly, I'm wondering, as far as cost goes, aren't there some mitigation grants available for something like this? Or is that too much red tape we'd be getting into?
Yeah, that's pretty difficult, and my guess is that you might find a private charity that might help out. There might be something from the state, but oftentimes there's just a lot of work associated with putting together grant applications for that kind of thing. I like the idea of doing research on what it'll take and how much it will cost. And we've looked at this before, and I think the costs were under $200 or so. There are also companies that specialize in picking up tires and recycling them, which might be a better package for the town. But we'll take a look at that. But I think it might be a reasonable cost compared to the amount of time and effort to prepare the grant application.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we have some funds in the public works budget that we use. I hate to say this out loud, but occasionally somebody throws something, discards it alongside the road, and we pick it up, and before it multiplies into 2 or 3, and a couch here and a mattress there. So even if they were $5 a tire, at 40 tires is $200. We can find that.
Yeah, that's worth it.
Any other questions for Gary while we have him? Well, Gary, thank you again so much for the work and putting in some real sweat out there on behalf of our wetlands.
There was sweat this morning, that's for sure.
And do you have anything else for the board at this time, Gary? Or if not, we can let you go.
No, I don't. Thank you for your support. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you, Gary.
Thanks, Gary.
Bye now.
Bye.
And next up, let me get my papers in order. The town charter requires that the Board of Selectmen appoint all officials that are not elected within the extent practical within 30 days of the annual town meeting. We're, what is it, a little over, we're at 13 days past that, so we're right in the zone. And you should all have the list in front of you. Please note that there are several positions such as the road commissioner and registrar of voters. And David, I'm assuming that means the deputy registrars of voters, that group.
I'm not 100% sure of that, so I'd keep them on the list. And I know Bernard's on there too, but I don't know why. He's already been appointed.
Yeah, so, for example, Bernard has another year on his appointment. So they can be appointed separately, or they can be appointed as a whole. And so I will welcome discussion or a motion.
Well, as I look down through this list, I feel that there are some that aren't being reappointed because the term isn't up, or some that are being reappointed that we need to check in with first before we reappoint them. My short list would be road commissioner, fire chief, harbor master, deputy harbor master, inland harbor master, and I don't know if anybody else has got a list, but I really feel we should check in with them. We don't have a lot of interaction with them on a regular basis, so I think that particular list, any for to be voted on, we should have a check-in with them first. I know I have some questions for a few of them. I don't know what anybody else thinks, but and then there may be more to add to that list by the rest of you, but I know those are the ones that I would like for us to speak with.
David, what's a sexton?
In some places, they oversee cemeteries.
Ah,
In Lincolnville, we don't have any town cemeteries, and town charter requires us to have a sexton, so make sure the sexton doesn't do something they're not supposed to do. I got myself appointed to that a number of years ago, and I don't do anything.
a ghost in the charter, so to speak. Yeah, Kern, do you want to make that a motion? I definitely,
I do.
I would support that. I agree.
I do. I don't, I feel that we really should speak to, at a minimum, those that I listed. The rest of them, I'm good with. And we might want to talk to our emergency management director because we haven't heard from him in a while. It's up to the rest of you, but I think the ones that I mentioned fairly important.
Kern, can you just say that list again?
Okay, Josh, I got the road commissioner. I added the emergency management director.
Okay.
I think, and along with the fire chief, harbor master, deputy harbor master. I did have a question mark beside the inland harbor master. And maybe that would be good to include in that group as well.
You want to formalize that and make it a motion?
Yes, I do. I don't know what you want me to say.
I think what I heard you say, Karen, was that you were moving to appoint all on the list of July 2020, except for road commissioner, emergency management director, harbor master, deputy harbor master, inland harbor master, and fire chief.
Correct.
Second.
That's my motion.
Okay, moved by Selectman Late, seconded by Selectman Garrettson. David, am I correct that we should exclude the health officer as well?
No, his term is up.
But he's, okay.
Yeah.
But it's a 3-year term, so that's the
Yes,
exception.
by
Yes.
statute, it's a 3-year term.
Okay. Discussion by the board? Yes.
I'm
Well,
not on the, I'm not on the
How about we
board, I'm
vote?
sure.
Let's finalize the vote and then we'll loop you in on the conversation. How's that, David?
Works for
Okay.
me.
So not seeing anyone jumping up and down on the Board of Selectmen. Selectman Barrows, what's your vote?
Yes,
Selectman Late, what's your vote?
Yes.
Selectman Garrettson, what's your vote?
Yes.
Selectman Ray, what's your vote?
Yes.
And Selectman Dunn, my vote is yes. And so motion passes. David, I'm guessing you're wondering what the follow-up is.
No, I can figure that out or whatever. I just wanted you to know, and in case somebody's watching from home, the road commissioner didn't need to be appointed to begin with
Right.
because his term isn't over.
Correct.
I'm certain that Road Commissioner Young would be more than happy to meet with the board at their convenience.
Yes, absolutely.
speak
Thank you
for
for the
it, but-
clarification. I believe, Kern, your intent is that we're just going to take the opportunity to have a check-in.
Correct,
Okay,
correct.
perfect, wonderful. Thank you all very much. And before moving on to the next agenda item, which also is a requirement by the town charter that the Board of Selectmen appoint all boards, committee, and commission not elected within 30 days to the practical extent of the town meeting. I hope you all have taken a long look at this list. And David Kinney, I have a couple questions for you before we get into any voting. But I want to put out to the select board a serious consideration of both our committee members, chairs, department heads, contractors. Looking at this list, there are dollar signs attached to every single one of these names. And this is something that I have been thinking about, cogitating on for many, many years. And with the overwhelming approval by our voters for the land swap for our wonderful oceanfront park that we're working towards finalizing, we're adding a layer of complexity to the infrastructure that we have to manage. And when I think about that, and I think about the individuals that we hire, contract, and appoint to oversee the maintenance and care of our infrastructure, our public access points, I think that we can do better for our voters and our taxpayers. And what I would ask is when we make these appointments, we have conversations with the individuals who work on our behalf, on behalf of our voters, on behalf of our taxpayers. But I would ask for either a motion or a verbalized consent from the board to start working towards looking at how we can find better efficiencies in how we manage and how we operate the town. I think we've had a lot of fingers in a lot of holes in the dam, and we're adding to that by accepting this waterfront parcel. And it's a wonderful gift, it's a wonderful resource, but there's added complexity, and it means more responsibility and more work. And I believe that we could take a comprehensive look at all of the contractors, whether it's a volunteer contractor or any of the myriad of mowers, pavers, waterfront stewards, you name it, of all of these many people who work on our behalf. And I think we can create some better efficiencies inherent within this structure. I don't think sticking with the status quo. So what I would propose is that the board start actively working towards finding a more efficient way to manage and steward our public resources. And that may be in the form of new or different positions within the town. And I would welcome or entertain anyone's thoughts.
So,
Go ahead, Tim. Oh, Josh.
Yep, Josh, you were saying?
yeah. So by that, are you saying that perhaps we should be considering perhaps like full-time positions to manage mowing and public works kind of stuff?
Yeah, I mean, I hesitate to use the, public works department just because, we are a small municipality, but yeah, I think our wonderful and strong volunteer base has been so fantastic, but we've been having these reoccurring conversations, and I feel like some of our volunteers are struggling because they're few and they're mighty, but they're, they just can't keep up with the crush of work that is being asked of them. And we've been dropping some balls over the years. So I think we need to basically take a comprehensive inventory of individuals and infrastructure and start to have a really constructive conversation about how we can more efficiently spend our taxpayers' dollars in a better application for all of our public infrastructure. So that may be a full-time position. It may be restructuring some committees. I think that is something that the board is going to need to workshop.
That's what I was going to say was I think that we need to schedule a workshop with everything that all of our great people are doing right now and our wishes of things that are sliding somewhat or completely through the cracks that need to be done, and get attached dollar figures to all of those and work times to all of those, and see what the crunch numbers together and see where it falls out. Because it's, yes, we don't want to have to spend a lot of money, but if we can spend the same amount of money and get a third more work and get it done more efficiently, we're a lot better off.
Absolutely.
Even if we're spending a third more and we get the same amount of more efficiency and get things done better, kept better, less repeating maintenance, we save money.
Well said, David.
Well, yeah, I agree. It's a great idea. It sounds like a large undertaking, but I think it's probably not a necessary one. I'm wondering if similar towns have approached the same problems, and if it's worth seeing what they may have done. And so we spend less time reinventing the wheel because we're trying to prevent ourselves from prevent the reinvention of the wheels. And that maybe, and I would like to task that guy sitting right below me to look into it, but I'm not so sure that's that's appropriate. But other towns may have done something very, very similar. It might behoove us to look at what they've done.
And you're right, Mike. It will be some heavy lifting. I mean, it's, but I think it's been a long time coming. It's easy to kind of keep reacting. A circumstance comes up and we react, and there's dollar figures associated with that. And I think we're at a good place to sort of pause and take stock of where we are, so that we don't continue to just react as situations come up, such as adding a new park to our town. So Josh, in your question, I wasn't clear whether you thought that this was something that we should pursue.
I do. No,
Okay.
I think we should pursue it. I think it makes a lot of sense.
Okay, thank you. So now that there's general consensus that this is something that is worth starting work on, I had the idea that we could task David with, and I know you all have copies of your budget that you look at from time to time when you're bored, but I'm thinking that it would be worth all of our times to task David to come up with maybe a consolidated budget of contractors and associated costs, so that we could have it all in one place, and with reference to what piece of town infrastructure they are applied to. And then I would also like to invite the select board to go on a road trip where with our new select board member, and as a reminder to all of us who have been on the board a little bit longer, to actually put eyes on all of these different pieces of infrastructure, so that as we move into this process, we're quite familiar with what it is we're talking about. Because I know sometimes we get kind of wrapped up in the abstract nature of it. And I think it would be useful for all of us to reacquaint ourselves with all the different parts and pieces and the individuals who are responsible for those.
Sounds like a good idea. Yeah.
Sound good? Do I see nodding of
Oh,
heads?
I agree. I
Okay.
agree.
So David, do you need anything more from the board in order to get started on that and work on scheduling something like that? You're muted.
Dave.
Sorry, I do that for my own protection. Yeah, I think that I've taken some pretty good notes as we've gone along on that, and can at least get you some groundwork to get started. And we'll get onto it. We'll schedule some times with the various committees or department heads and do a road trip.
Great. That's fantastic. I really appreciate all of your enthusiasm for this. I really want us to always be aware and cautious of rubber stamping anything, because it always has greater implications for our taxpayers. And so I appreciate you all being willing to take the extra time for this. So that rant being aside, we still have the various board, committee, and commission reappointments. And David, I'm wondering if we could just scan through this list really quickly, because like on the Emergency Medical Services Committee, didn't Sid say he was not interested?
I don't believe I got a response from Sid.
Oh, he may have just responded to me. I believe, and I can double check my email, but I believe he said that he was not interested.
Yeah, I will say there were 3 people that contacted me after this list was put together. Richard Sanderson on Lakes and Ponds said yes. Steve Thomas on Lakes and Ponds said yes. And Jay Foster as an alternate on the planning board said he'd go another year as an alternate.
Okay.
The others are still awaiting or.
Well, excuse me, David, I sent you an
and
email
Mike.
just before this saying, yes, on the 2 committees that I'm on. Yeah.
Which is broadband.
Yeah, a broadband and conservation commission.
Conservation.
Of course, I'm not going to be able to find it right now, but
well, certainly what's going to happen, and most of these people, well, not most, all of them have had a follow-up saying, can you let us know one way or the other? I wouldn't look to appoint anybody, obviously, that didn't want to be appointed. I think there was only one, and those that were awaiting response at this point, I wouldn't reappoint. And I mean, you're going to get this list over and over again in the coming meetings. We also have some people that have expressed an interest in possibly serving, that I've encouraged to get a community interest form in so that they can meet with the board. And, they would be new people versus these are all people that have served on these committees prior.
yeah, I can't find that email right now. Sorry, guys. But so is there any thoughts or comments or motions anyone wishes to make for Board of Appeals, Board of Assessment Review, Broadband, Cemetery Trustees, Conservation Commission, Emergency Medical Services, Financial Advisory, Harbor Committee, Lakes and Ponds, Memorial Day, Mid-Coast Economic Development District, Mid-Coast Solid Waste, Planning Board, Recreation Commission, or Wages and Personnel?
Well, I have a comment. I see this, the only person who has not returned any type of communication on the cemetery trustee would be Cecil. I have a concern with those, with the trustees, the committees, the way things are being run. And I really would like this board to be brought in on stuff. And I think we should talk to them. I, for one, personal opinion, am not happy with the way some of these cemeteries are being taken care of. And I want to know why and what we can do, if anything, to help them. I don't know if somebody just doesn't want to reach out, it's scared to reach out, don't know how to reach out. I don't know, but I'm really concerned about it. And I think we should be, as the people leading this town. I think it's very disrespectful to not be.
Well, and hearkening back to our earlier conversation just now is, you know, how can we help support, you know, the various parts and pieces in this town, you know, and our volunteers suffering quietly without, you know, our help and knowledge. And is this something that we need to make part of this larger conversation moving forward? So that being said, Kern, do you wish to make a motion?
I don't know.
I would, not to interrupt, but I would just point out for people that these are the people on this list are people whose terms are expiring or have expired. So like on the top one is Board of Appeals. There's only 2 names on that. There's 5 regular members and up to 2 alternates. And some people's terms, those are 3-year terms. So you only would see 2 regular members right now, possible there, unless there was a vacancy. So that it's not like Mike and Terry are the only people on the Board of Appeals. There are others, but their terms aren't expiring.
Right.
So if you
Okay.
only see one name somewhere, like Kern brought up the cemetery trustees, Mr. Dennison's term has expired. He's been obviously notified of that fact, and he hasn't made a final decision whether he'd like to even seek reappointment at this point. So, but there are others still on that committee.
Yep.
So do you want a motion?
I would love one.
I move that the board appoint the committee members requesting reappointment to the business term set forth on the expiring committee terms list dated 7/24/2020 and included within our meeting packet.
Moved.
Second.
Hang on.
Yeah.
It moved by Selectman Late, seconded by Selectman Barrows. Any discussion? I see David furiously waving his hand.
I just wanted to note that there were 2 things that were awaiting response on that, or 5 people that have actually responded. 2 for Mike, or Selectman Ray, excuse me. Richard Sanderson, Steve Thomas, and Jay Foster all expressed an interest in continuing. But if we go just by the list, they're in the awaiting response column.
Yeah.
So all agreed with that amendment?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. If there's no further discussion, Selectman Barrows, what's your vote?
Yes.
Selectman Late, what's your vote?
Yes.
Selectman Garrettson, what's your vote?
Yes.
Selectman Ray, what's your vote?
Yes.
And Selectman Dunn, my vote is yes. Thank you all very much for that thorough conversation. And moving along, we are at a point, well, enclosed in your packet is the adopted phased reopening plan.
Right.
We've begun to have inquiries from various other groups in town, committees, commissions, wondering if, considering that it is summer and it is often beautiful outside, if they would be permitted to meet outside as an official meeting. And so it's basically time for us to have a conversation about looking at what this next step looks like. And so if the board wants to make an amendment, we need to have a motion as such. David, do you have anything to add for that?
Well, really, the request had come from the Conservation Commission and asked me if they could meet outside here at the town office. We got a picnic table out back or whatever, and set up some temporary chairs if need be, folding chairs. And I did what a good bureaucrat always does and went and grabbed the policy and said, oh, well, board had voted that we were going to have online meetings for committees, and that was going to continue. So I told them I'd put it on the agenda for your discussion. I don't think we're to the point for a quasi judicial board such as the planning board or yourselves to gather, because I don't think we can accommodate the public, socially distance and still be broadcasting and those types of things. But certainly for our either ad hoc committees or advisory committees or commissions that meet, aren't typically broadcast, as long as they're willing to follow the guidelines put forth by the state for gatherings, I don't really see why not. We'd also talked about this board having a listening session, set up that was socially distanced. So I think it's workable. I'm not exactly excited about trying to do like a planning board meeting where they have 3 applicants that have 6 different representatives, and then concerned about it show up. We don't have room to set that up here for sure.
Well, and certainly it's just, there's no way that we can adhere to the governor's guidelines in terms of the Freedom of Access Act. But as long, I mean, for example, that listening session, there would be, a disclaimer that no action would be taken by the board, and it's just that, a listening session. So I'm interested in thoughts from the board, or I'll entertain a motion.
I'm good with it.
I'm good with it.
Yeah, no, I think it's a great idea, but I would kind of hope that we'd be open to revisiting the whole meeting out, groups who want to meet outside. If there's suddenly we get a large number or a significant number of complaints coming in saying, hey, I'm denied access. And we might want to revisit that, or at least look at it in a cursory way. I don't know how we would revisit it. If it's not working, we look at it. David's waving his hand.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm doing this from my memory, so 4 of you, this should sound familiar to, and Mike brings up a good point. When you approve this phased reopening plan, the board did empower the board chair to be able to, in essence, roll back anything that we rolled out on an emergency basis, and then call the board together to either approve or override the chair's actions or thoughts. And I think that would still remain in effect, so that if this became a problem, either because health issues change in our region, or if the public was offended by the fact that the Conservation Commission, for example, was meeting outside at a picnic table instead of inside in the conference room that I'm sitting at now, that the chair could put the kibosh to it and then bring that back to the board. Okay. For future consideration.
Well, I'm wondering if for clarity purposes, we need to be more clear in terms of who this applies to. I'm not at all opposed to the idea of non-quasi judicial groups meeting, but I could see where there might be some confusion amongst our various commissions and committees who this may apply to. And so perhaps we should, for the sake of ultimate transparency and clarity, that we table this for now and actually have a list that will be available to the public prior to our meeting with that approved group. Just throwing it out there for everyone's consideration. Yes, David.
If it pleases the board, if that suggested motion was implemented, I could communicate with the various boards, committees, and commissions that aren't quasi-judicial and don't routinely broadcast their meetings, and make that available to the chairs. You know, reach out to the chair of, say, Financial Advisory Committee and say, if you wish to meet outside, that would be okay. Meanwhile, certainly if the Board of Appeals, for example, wanted to have a meeting, I could clearly tell the chair that they're quasi-judicial and needed not to meet that way.
That satisfies me. I think we should go forward with this motion right now.
Because the committee chairs also have a pretty good grasp of their committees, whether they like to continue meeting via Zoom or want to take up the option of getting together in a socially distanced, responsible manner.
Josh, do you want to make that motion?
Yeah, I move that the Board of Selectmen amend the reopening plan to allow any town board, committee, or commission that is not quasi-judicial and that does not routinely broadcast its meetings to meet outside in a publicly accessible space, provided that the town office is given ample notice to inform the public of the meeting and that all COVID-19 guidelines issued by the state of Maine are fully complied with.
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Selectman Garrettson, seconded by Selectman Late. Is there any further discussion?
Yeah, I would just like to ask David when he communicates with the chairs to stress somehow that it'd be publicly accessible places. That's where everybody can get to.
And they need to be accessible in terms of those with disabilities. That's
what I was getting at. Yeah.
Yep, that's a charter requirement.
Okay.
I'll do that.
Any further discussion? Seeing nothing, Selectman Barrows, what's your vote?
Yes.
Selectman Late, what's your vote?
Yes.
Selectman Garrettson, what's your vote?
Yes.
Selectman Ray, what's your vote?
Yes.
Selectman Dunn, my vote is yes, the motion passes. Thank you all very much for that thoughtful discussion. And Selectman updates. Selectman Barrows, what do you have for us?
Nothing yet. Basically, we're having a Midco Solid Waste meeting, which was postponed a week from last Wednesday, this Wednesday. And it looks like everything should be going good. It's got a good game plan written out in front of us. It should be a productive meeting.
Great. Thank you. Selectman Late, what do you have for us?
I have the same thing that David has. I missed the last strategic and capital planning meeting for Midco Solid Waste. I was brought up to speed with everything that was presented. I can't meet in the middle of the day. Imagine that. I've got a job. But that's all I've got.
Okay.
Next time.
Okay. Thank you very much. Selectman Garrettson, I know you've got an update for us.
Yes. So let's see. The broadband committee met, I guess, over a month ago now. We implemented the changes that the selectmen that we all decided on, and I emailed that this morning to everyone. And so I guess this is me asking for the blessing for the green light to go ahead with the survey electronically. And that I'm not sure in terms of sending it to, I forget the acronym to send it to every address, how that would go, how we implement that.
And I'm wondering, David Kinney, is this something that we should put up on the screen to share for the record?
I could do that.
Oh, good.
That
Just because it wasn't in our packet, and so I want to make sure that it's included for anyone watching or anyone who tunes into our YouTube channel after the fact.
yeah, certainly. Okay, 1 second. Let me just share screen. How do I? Chrome. Okay.
And while Josh is doing that, I feel like it sort of hits all the points that we discussed, that previous board discussed.
How are we going to maximize delivery of this to the majority of the people?
So
Not everybody's got email, do they?
no. So in addition to posting it electronically on the Google group and Facebook and all of that, we had talked about sending it to every address in a paper copy to every address in Lincolnville. And I think most members of the committee are happy to help with, stuffing those into envelopes and putting stickers on.
So let's just say that I didn't have internet to receive this, and I ended up receiving a paper copy. Is this something you're expecting to be brought back to the town office for process?
To be mailed back. I guess mailed back or delivered. And then the broadband committee could go through that in a socially distanced way to add those to the electronic responses to capture the full responses.
So where does it tell me to do that though, Josh?
For the paper version, we would have a write-up that would be attached to it, stating that.
Okay.
But when people get the electronic link, for people that fill it out that way, they simply fill these out. They push send, and then that's it.
Yeah. Okay.
We did look at the every door direct mail. And that the challenge with that is with Northport sharing our zip code.
Oh.
The way the mail carriers deliver, some go from Lincolnville into Northport. That's not going to be a real effective use. I mean, we can do it, and then obviously one of the questions is your address, and if somebody from Northport were to send that back, the other, we may be able to do something to create a mailing list, but I haven't pursued that one. But I did look at the every door direct mail, EDDM system of the post office. We can figure out a way to make it work in paper though.
Yeah.
Okay.
So your first question is, are you a resident of Lincolnville? You could expand that, if they're not, if no, please disregard,
Yeah, that's a great idea.
Yeah.
I'll add that.
That way, if it did get into a Northport resident's hands, sorry.
Please do not fill out this survey.
Yep.
Okay.
Other thoughts from the board on this?
I
I
like it.
guess. I like it, but I guess being the pessimist that I am, what happens with in my busy schedule, I go and fill out this one electronically sitting at work here and mail it off to you. send it off to you. And then I have a brain cramp 3 days later when it comes in the mail. I fill it out again and send it to you. Now you get two answers from the same person that you don't know is a duplication.
Mhm. As long as everyone is honest and fills it out completely, we would see that the same address filled it out twice and we would disregard one.
And how are you proving that address?
We're not.
You know,
There's that. I don't know how we would do that. So
I mean, I'm not saying people are dishonest. I am saying some of us could be spacey at times.
yeah. And so luckily, yeah, having the one of the first questions be, what's your address, should hopefully resolve that issue.
Question 3. Okay. Yep.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's as comprehensive as you can possibly make a survey. And I want to believe that people who are compelled to participate in a broadband internet survey are unlikely to use it as an opportunity to manipulate or create fraud, and ultimately the data that will be brought forth to us is ours to consider or disregard as we see fit. So
yeah. And if they're putting fake addresses in Lincolnville, we can figure that out.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, for sure.
yeah.
David Kinney, do you want a motion to accept the survey to allow the
I think
your consensus is fine?
consensus works for me. I think if somebody's negative about it, speak up. If the chair of the committee thinks a motion is necessary, then somebody can make one.
I do not.
So just a general roll call. David Barrows, how are you with this concept, sending this out?
I think it's a good idea.
Okay,
Yes.
Kern?
I think it's a great idea.
Okay, great. Josh, I'm gonna guess that you're on board.
Yes.
Selectman Ray?
I'm on board too, yeah.
Okay, yeah, and I'm nodding my head too. So, thanks for taking the time to give it a further pass.
Welcome. Thank you.
I'll be curious to see what your results are.
Me too.
Anything else for the board?
Not for me. No.
Okay.
Not for me, no.
And Selectman Ray, you're relatively new, so
I'm sorry, I don't have anything to clog up the works. Yeah.
no, that's okay. Well, we added this as an agenda item because we all tend to get involved in various intermunicipal groups and committees, and it has proven to be useful to be kind of brought up to speed on. So you'll have your chance to get nominated for something.
Yeah. Looking forward to it.
And myself, I have nothing to report. The Emergency Medical Services Review Committee has not met. So moving rapidly along, it is that time of year to review and consider the paving bids that we received. David, do you want to take it from here?
Sure. Excuse me. We sought bids for the paving work and associated shoulder work, which means putting the little gravel shoulder down the side. The bid summary included, we had 4 bidders. The apparent low bidder was Hagar Enterprises of Damascotta. We've worked with them a number of years in the past. They did North Cobbtown Road, Moody Mountain Road, Proctor Road. Well, we didn't work with them last year. Wellman Paving was the low bidder last year that we worked with for Youngtown Road. But both Bernard and I talked about this. We see no reason that Hagar shouldn't be awarded the contract. They're certainly capable of doing the work. We've had success with them in the past, and so that's our recommendation. And we're within budget, which is always good too.
I'll entertain a motion.
I
Oh, yeah.
move that the 2020 paving bid be awarded to Hagar Enterprises of Damascotta, Maine for the unit prices bid.
Second.
Moved by Selectman Late, seconded by Selectman Ray. Any discussion? Selectman Barrows, what's your vote?
Yes,
Selectman Late, what's your vote?
Yes,
Selectman Garrettson, what's your vote?
Yes.
Selectman Ray, what's your vote?
Yes.
And Selectman Dunn, my vote is yes. And in that same vein, while it's July, it is time for us to consider and approve winter sand bids. We have two bids. And I would entertain a motion for one of them.
I move that the
move that-
2020 winter sand supply and stockpiling bid be awarded to Brad Atkin and Sons of Monroe, Maine for the unit price of $11.05 per cubic yard.
I'll second.
Moved by Selectman Garrettson, seconded by Selectman Barrows. Is there any discussion? Seeing no discussion. Selectman Barrows, what's your vote?
Yes,
Selectman Late, what's your vote?
yes,
Selectman Garrettson, what's your vote?
Yes.
Selectman Ray, what's your vote?
Yes.
And Selectman Dunn, my vote is yes. Thank you all very much. And as it is required by us, we have to adopt, renew, amend, or rescind the following board policies: rules of procedure, policy on treasurer's disbursement warrants for employee wages and benefits, policy on treasurer's disbursement warrant on state fees and revenues, and the policy on the treasurer's disbursement warrant for municipal education costs. We'll want to make a separate motion for each one of these. Selectman Ray, since you're new, do you have questions, comments, concerns on all of them, or we could take them one at a time?
No, I'm fine.
Okay.
Thanks.
Wonderful. Well, let's tackle the rules of procedure for the Board of Selectmen first. I'll entertain a motion.
I move that we approve the rules of procedure for selectmen.
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Selectman Barrows, seconded by Selectman Garrettson. Is there any discussion? Seeing no discussion. Selectman Barrows, what's your vote?
Yes,
Selectman Late, what's your vote?
yes,
Selectman Garrettson, what's your vote?
Yes.
Selectman Ray, what's your vote?
Yes.
And Selectman Dunn, my vote is yes. Motion passes for the rules of procedure. Next up, we have the policy on treasurer's disbursement warrants for employee wages and benefits. I will entertain a motion.
I move
I
that the
move
Board
that
of
the Board of
Selectmen.
Selectmen. Nope,
Kurt,
go
go ahead.
I move that the Board of Selectmen approve the policy on treasurer's disbursement warrants for employee wages and benefits dated July 27th, 2020.
I'll second.
Moved by Selectman Late, seconded by Selectman Barrows. Is there any discussion? Seeing no discussion, Selectman Barrows, what's your vote?
Yes,
Selectman Late, what's your vote?
Yes,
Selectman Garrettson, what's your vote?
Yes.
Selectman Ray, what's your vote?
Yes.
And Selectman Dunn, my vote is yes. And next we have the policy on treasurer's disbursement warrant of state fees and revenues. I will entertain a motion.
I move that the board approve the policy on treasurer's disbursement warrants for sending revenue collected on behalf of the state to the appropriate state agency dated July 27th, 2020.
Second.
second.
Moved by Selectman Garrettson, seconded by Selectman Ray. Is there discussion? Seeing no discussion, Selectman Barrows, what's your vote?
Yes,
Selectman Late, what's your vote?
yes,
Selectman Garrettson, what's your vote?
Yes.
Selectman Ray, what's your vote?
Yes.
And Selectman Dunn, my vote is yes. Motion passes. And finally, we have the policy on treasurer's disbursement warrant for municipal education costs. And I will entertain a motion.
I move that the board approve policy on treasurer's disbursement warrants for municipal education costs during July 27th, 2020.
Moved by Selectman Barrows,
Second.
seconded by Selectman Late. Is there any discussion? Seeing no discussion, Selectman Barrows, what's your vote?
Yes,
Selectman Late, what's your vote?
Yes.
Selectman Garrettson, what's your vote?
Yes.
Selectman Ray, what is your vote?
Yes.
And Selectman Dunn, my vote is yes. Motion passes. Thank you all very much. And it is also that time of year to review and approve the assessor's agent contract for the upcoming year. Is there any questions on this? Comments, concerns?
No.
And so I will entertain a motion.
So I move that the board approve and authorize the town administrator to sign the contract for assessing services with Fort Halifax appraisals for fiscal year 2021.
Second.
Moved by Selectman Ray, seconded by Selectman Garrettson. Is there any discussion? Seeing no discussion, Selectman Barrows, what's your vote?
yes,
Selectman Late, what's your vote?
Yes.
Selectman Garrettson, what's your vote?
Yes.
Selectman Ray, what's your vote?
Yes.
And Selectman Dunn, my vote is yes. Thank you all very much. And enclosed in your packets were the latest batch of treasurer and payroll warrants that we need to approve and sign. I will entertain a motion.
I move that the board approve the treasurers and payroll warrants.
Second.
Moved by Selectman Barrows, seconded by Selectman Late. Is there any discussion? Seeing no discussion, Selectman Barrows, what's your vote?
Yes,
Selectman Late, what's your vote?
Yes.
Selectman Garrettson, what's your vote?
Yes.
Selectman Ray, what is your vote?
Yes.
And Selectman Dunn, my vote is yes. The motion passes. Does the board have any other business it wishes to attend to?
No.
Nope.
Okay, seeing nothing, I will entertain a final motion.
I move that we adjourn.
second,
Moved by Selectman Ray. Was that seconded by Selectman Barrows?
sure.
Is there any
Oh, man.
discussion? Seeing no discussion, Selectman Barrows, what's your vote?
Yes,
Selectman Late, what's your vote?
Yes.
Selectman Garrettson, what's your vote?
Yes.
And Selectman Ray, what's your vote?
Yes.
And Selectman Dunn, we are adjourned. Thank you all for your hard work. Have a good rest of your evening.
Thank you. You too.
Thank you. You too.
Thank
we'll
you.
see ya.
I
Bye.
Bye.